The morning after everything shifted between Isabella and Adrian didn't feel like the calm after a storm. It felt like walking into a house where every door was half open, every shadow holding a question she wasn't brave enough to ask. She stood outside his mansion longer than necessary, fingers trembling slightly as she reached for the handle. She'd returned to work as if things between them were normal, but they weren't. Nothing about him felt normal anymore, not after seeing the side of him he rarely allowed anyone to witness. The moment the door opened, the air told her something was off. Not in a dramatic way, no alarms, no rushing footsteps, just a subtle tension floating in the silence. She stepped inside, and the guards at the entrance didn't even try to hide the way they straightened up. They always carried themselves professionally, but today their eyes were sharper, more alert, scanning her and then the hallway as if expecting something to burst through the walls. "Good morning, Miss Hart," one of them said, voice clipped. She nodded, offering a polite smile, though confusion tugged at her. She'd been working here long enough to know what normal looked like. This wasn't it. Before she could ask anything, the twins' laughter echoed faintly from upstairs. The sound grounded her. She took a breath and headed toward their room, letting the comfort of routine push away the unease. The twins, Nolan and Nadia, ran into her arms before she even crossed the threshold. Nolan clung to her waist and Nadia wrapped her arms around Isabella's neck. Their reactions weren't unusual, but today their hold lingered, tighter than usual, as if they were afraid she might disappear if they let go. "Hey, what's this?" Isabella whispered, brushing Nadia's hair. "Did you two miss me that much?" Nolan nodded, his expression unusually serious for a 5-year-old. "Daddy said we stay close today." Isabella paused. "Did he?" "Yes," Nadia murmured. "He was different." Different. That was putting it lightly. She didn't know what unsettled her more, hearing it from the twins or feeling it the moment she walked in. She mustered a smile for their sake and guided them toward the play area, but their words lingered. As the twins played, Isabella tried focusing on them, but the feeling wouldn't leave. She could sense something beneath the surface of the house, something heavy, something unspoken. And it wasn't just the tension, it was the way it pressed against her chest, making her more aware of every sound. She was stacking blocks with Nadia when she heard it, the unmistakable sharp edge in Adrian's voice drifting down the hallway. Not loud, just tightly contained, as if he was doing everything in his power not to break something or someone. "I don't care what you have to do," he hissed, voice low but controlled. "Find out who breached it. I want names. Now." Isabella froze. Nolan looked toward the door, eyes wide. He wasn't scared, he was listening. The twins were used to their father's authority. But this wasn't just authority. This was tension sharpened into something closer to warning. She swallowed and turned back to them. "Stay here," she said softly. "I'll be right back." Nolan reached for her hand, but she gently slipped free. She stepped out of the room and followed the sound of Adrian's voice. Her heart beat faster with every step, not because she feared him, but because she sensed whatever he was dealing with wasn't small. She stopped at the corner when she heard him again. "Rogues near my territory? I want to know how they got close without anyone noticing. And I want the perimeter reinforced. Double the guards." Her breath caught. "Rogues? Territory?" The words struck her harder than they should have, not because she didn't understand them but because she did. She'd heard them whispered in the village she grew up in, mentioned by older families who claimed werewolf bloodlines still existed in hidden pockets of society. She used to roll her eyes at those stories. Yet here she was, standing in the hallway of a man who had never once denied what he was. He had simply never explained it fully. Isabella stepped back, intending to return to the twins, but before she could move, his voice came again, quieter, heavier. "They're after my bloodline." She froze. That wasn't a business threat. That wasn't corporate rivalry. That was something else entirely. Before she could retreat, footsteps approached. She straightened, pretending she hadn't been listening, but Adrian already knew she was there. He always did. His senses were too sharp, too aware. The moment he saw her, his expression shifted. The anger faded, replaced by something calmer though no less intense. He closed the distance between them in a few steps. "Why are you out here?" he asked, softer than she expected. I heard you talking," she admitted. "I just wanted to make sure everything was okay." He studied her, eyes lingering on her face a moment too long. There were shadows beneath them, Exhaustion, stress, something else she couldn't name. You should be with the twins. I don't want you anywhere near the halls today. That's exactly why I came, she said quietly. You doubled the guards. You sound tense. The kids feel it too. What's going on? He didn't answer. Not right away. Instead, he leaned a shoulder against the wall and rubbed the bridge of his nose, a rare display of vulnerability. I didn't want you involved in this. I already am, she said softly. Whether you meant to or not. His jaw clenched. She took a small step closer. Adrian, what did you mean when you said someone was after your bloodline? For a moment she thought he would shut down like he always did. But something in him shifted, quietly, deeply. Maybe it was the exhaustion, maybe the way she said his name, or maybe he was simply tired of holding everything alone. He met her gaze, and this time he didn't look away. You deserve the truth, he said. Her breath hitched. He nodded slowly. My family, my kind, we don't operate like humans. There are rules, boundaries, power struggles. Some want control, some want territory, some want to break legacies that have existed for generations. He paused. And someone has decided to come after mine. She didn't speak, afraid the wrong word would shut him down. What you heard wasn't exaggeration, he continued quietly. There were signs near the perimeter last night. Signs that weren't left by humans. Isabella felt the floor tilt beneath her. Claw marks, she whispered, remembering what she saw on the back fence the day before. His eyes flicked up sharply. You saw them? She nodded. I didn't know what they meant. Adrian's voice softened in a way that startled her. You weren't supposed to. But I did, she said. And I'm still here. A long silence stretched between them. Not uncomfortable, just heavy with understanding. You shouldn't be, he said quietly. If they come after the twins, they'll come after anyone close to them. No, she said, voice trembling but steady. I'm not leaving because danger showed up at your door. Those kids need consistency. And I'm not walking away just because things got frightening. He stared at her for a long moment, something unspoken passing through his gaze. Not dominance this time. Not alpha authority. Something gentler. Roar. You're putting yourself at risk, he murmured. And you are too, she whispered back. Every single day. Their eyes held for a long moment. Then slowly Adrian nodded. He didn't thank her, not with words. He simply said, stay close to the twins today. Don't leave the upper floors. If anything happens, I'll come to you immediately. She nodded. He stepped aside, letting her pass. But as she walked away, she felt his eyes on her, not with suspicion but with something closer to protectiveness. Something that made her chest ache. Whatever storm was coming, it wasn't finished. And for the first time, Adrian wasn't preparing to face it alone. The sun was barely up when Isabella noticed the first sign that the day would not be ordinary. She was walking down the hallway carrying a tray with breakfast for the twins when the hairs on the back of her neck prickled. It was subtle at first, just a sensation, an instinctual warning, but it tightened with every step toward the living room. The mansion, normally quiet except for the soft hum of the morning, seemed charged, alive, as if it knew danger was near. She reached the living room and froze. The front gate, which she had closed and checked herself the night before, was slightly ajar. Not swinging, just open enough for someone, or something, to slip through. Her heart skipped a beat and she set the tray down, her hands trembling slightly. The twins were nowhere in sight. Panic rose like a tide. Before she could call for them, a low, controlled growl echoed from behind her. She spun around and there he was, Adrian. His presence alone seemed to fill the room, his broad shoulders tense, eyes sharp and alert. He didn't shout, he didn't panic. He simply moved closer, his body language radiating control, readiness, and something primal that went beyond human awareness. Stay here, he said, voice low, unyielding. Do not move. Isabella nodded, swallowing hard. He didn't need to explain why. She could feel it, the danger in the air, the kind that demanded obedience. She backed toward the stairs, her hands gripping the railing for support, eyes darting to the front doors. Then they came. They were fast, almost too fast to see properly. Rogue wolves, or humans with wolfish intent, had infiltrated the perimeter. They moved with precision, aiming for the house as if they had known exactly where the twins would be. Isabella's breath caught. This wasn't a story, a myth, or a warning from the past. This was real. Right here, right now. Adrian's stance shifted subtly. Not in a theatrical way but instinctively. There was a change in him that she had learned to recognize over the past weeks. Subtle, commanding alpha. His presence radiated dominance, strength, and protection. He was preparing for the attack, anticipating every move, and it was terrifying and magnetic all at once. Go to the twins, he ordered. Now. She hesitated only for a heartbeat before bolting toward the staircase. Her legs felt like lead, but fear and adrenaline carried her upward. She found the twins in their room, hiding under the covers of their beds, wide-eyed and trembling. It's okay, she said, trying to keep her voice steady, hiding the panic rising inside her. Daddy's here. He'll protect us. They didn't move until she held their small hands, guiding them toward the window that opened to the backyard, the safest escape route. Even as she led them, she could hear the chaos outside. The snarls, the sounds of claws on stone, the subtle growl of a pack asserting territory. And then he was there. Adrian appeared like a shadow, moving between the intruders and them with a fluidity that defied explanation. She caught glimpses of the movement, quick, precise, controlled. There was no hesitation, no error. She realized, with a mix of awe and fear, that he wasn't entirely human in that moment. The strength, the speed, the instinct, it was in his blood, raw and commanding. Stay behind me, he instructed, voice low but firm. The twins obeyed immediately, as if instinctually trusting him more than anything else in the world. Isabella followed, keeping herself between the children and whatever threat loomed outside. One rogue managed to breach the immediate perimeter. It lunged at her, teeth bared, claws extended. Instinctively she froze, unsure what to do, but Adrian reacted before she could. He grabbed her with one arm, yanking her and the twins out of harm's way in a fluid motion. He didn't even look at her as he did it. His focus was entirely on the threat. The fight outside was over quickly, almost too quickly. Adrian's dominance was absolute. He moved with a precision that spoke of training, instinct, and bloodline authority. Within moments, the rogues had been neutralized, either fleeing or subdued by him and the guards he had called in. After the last echo of the intruders faded, the silence that followed was almost as loud as the chaos itself. Isabella clutched the twins to her chest, their small bodies trembling. She glanced up at Adrian, who was leaning against the frame of the door, his chest heaving slightly, eyes scanning for any remaining threats. You're safe now, he said quietly, not to her, not to the twins, but almost to himself. His voice carried weight, a mixture of relief and residual tension. Isabella felt her own body relax slightly, though her heart was still racing. She couldn't imagine living a life without understanding the depth of danger Adrian constantly faced. It was exhausting just to witness it. And yet there was something profoundly magnetic about him in that state. So alpha, so dominant, so protective, that it made her pulse race in ways she hadn't anticipated. Finally, he walked over to her, kneeling slightly to meet her gaze. You didn't have to stay close, he said, voice softer now, but still carrying that edge of authority. You could have run. I couldn't, she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. They're your children. And I couldn't leave you either. His gaze held hers, unblinking, weighing her words. Then slowly he reached out, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. Not controlling, not commanding, but grounding. You're braver than I expected, he said, a rare compliment. And far more foolish. She felt heat rise to her cheeks. I think it's called caring. He studied her, something unspoken passing between them. Then he let go, standing straight again, regaining the alpha composure she had come to recognize. The one that demanded respect and exuded control over everything and everyone in the room. The twins, now calmer, hugged her tightly. Daddy's strong, Nolan said proudly, looking up at Adrian. He saved us. Adrian's lips curved slightly, not a full smile, but enough that it softened his harsh features. Yes, he admitted. But you were brave too. That acknowledgement, though small, hit Isabella harder than anything else. For the first time she felt like she wasn't just part of the household because of duty or employment. She mattered in ways that went beyond the role of a nanny. She mattered to Adrian, and that realization carried more weight than the danger she had just faced. As they settled the twins back into their morning routine, Adrian remained close by, watching, protecting, and silently acknowledging that Isabella's presence wasn't a threat to his control. In fact, she had become an anchor, stabilizing not just the children but him as well. For the first time, Isabella understood the truth behind the alpha dominance she had witnessed. It wasn't just about power. It was about instinct, protection, and unspoken bonds. And now she was irrevocably a part of those bonds. The morning wore on, quiet now, the tension dissipating but leaving a residue of awareness. Danger had been real, and Adrian had shown her what it meant to live in a world where instincts ruled and every decision carried weight. But alongside the fear there was clarity. She belonged here in the house with the twins and with Adrian, even if she didn't yet fully understand what that would mean for the future. And she suspected that future, however uncertain, would demand courage she had never known she possessed. The afternoon sun slanted through the tall windows, casting long shadows across the mansion's polished floors. The tension that had hung in the air earlier that morning had faded slightly, but Isabella knew better than to believe the calm meant the threat was gone. Adrian moved through the house with measured steps, always alert, always aware of the twins, of her, of the world around him. Even after the attack, even after the rogues had been dealt with, the sense of danger lingered. He had survived threats before, he had lived his entire life anticipating them, but this one had been different. And Isabella had seen the part of him that no one else ever did. She had spent the morning with Nolan and Nadia, playing quietly in the living room. The twins' laughter was soft now, almost cautious, as if the morning had taught them lessons they didn't want to repeat. Isabella kept them close, watching them, making sure they felt safe. She could feel Adrian's eyes on her the entire time, subtle but present. Not controlling, not hovering, just watching like a guardian who understood instinctively who and what needed protecting. The front door opened abruptly and the air shifted. Isabella froze for a heartbeat before she recognized the sound of Adrian's voice, low and controlled. He had returned. She had expected him moments ago, but the timing, unpredictable as always, reminded her just how much of his life was dictated by necessity, by vigilance, by the constant awareness that nothing in his world was ever simple. Adrian entered the room, his posture relaxed, though his eyes scanned every corner, every shadow, every angle of the room. He was calm, but she could see the lingering tension in the set of his jaw and the slight twitch of his fingers. Danger had passed, yes, but the residue of it lingered in him, reminding everyone around him that life in his world was never predictable. Isabella stepped toward him, twins clinging to her hands. Nolan and Nadia looked up at their father, smiling faintly but with a mixture of awe and curiosity. They had always known him to be strong, capable, and protective, but today he had shown them more than that. He had shown them that he was willing to risk himself without hesitation. And they had understood something about loyalty, courage, and family that went beyond words. "You handled it well," Adrian said, his voice carrying a weight of approval not just to her but to the twins as well. "You didn't panic. You kept them safe. That matters." Isabella's throat tightened. She had done what she thought was right, but hearing it acknowledged by him, the alpha who had never given praise lightly, made her chest ache in a way that was almost painful. I didn't want them to be afraid," she said softly. "They were afraid," he said, nodding slightly. "And so was I. But you didn't show it. That made a difference." His gaze lingered on her for a heartbeat longer than necessary, and something in that look unsettled her, made her heart skip unexpectedly. It wasn't flirtation. It was recognition, a quiet acknowledgement of courage, presence, and something that mattered far more than either of them had admitted. The twins tugged at her hands, pulling her closer. "Daddy, can we play now?" Nolan asked. Adrian glanced down at them, a rare softness touching his features. He knelt slightly, letting the children climb onto his knees, holding them close. He had always been protective, yes, but now Isabella noticed something else. A willingness to let someone else in, even if just for a moment. She watched them, her heart swelling. The scene was simple. Father and children, a nanny nearby, and a quiet mansion that had survived an attack. Yet the weight of what had happened and what it meant settled over her like a blanket. Life in Adrian's world was never normal. Danger could arrive at any moment. But for the first time she felt included. A part of something bigger than herself, bigger than fear. The afternoon stretched quietly. The twins played with their toys, occasionally glancing toward Adrian for reassurance, and she sat close by, occasionally helping them, occasionally watching. Adrian remained seated nearby, silent for long stretches, yet always present. His alpha presence was palpable, not dominating now, not threatening, just protective. Finally, as the sun began to dip lower in the sky, painting the room with golden light, Adrian rose. He walked toward her, slow and deliberate, and when he reached her, he stopped. The air seemed to thicken. She could feel the pull of his presence, the quiet intensity that had always been part of him, but now was tempered by something deeper. "I need to say this," he began, voice low but steady. "I've spent my life keeping people at a distance. My instincts, my responsibilities, they demand control, dominance, and separation. I've never wanted anyone this close because it makes me vulnerable." She looked up at him, heart beating faster. Vulnerable. That was a word she had never heard from him. And hearing it now, seeing the truth in his eyes, made something shift inside her. "You're not just anyone," he continued. "You've been here close to my children and to me, and I can't go back. I don't want to." Isabella swallowed. "I don't want you to go back either," she said quietly. I want to be here. For them. For you. For this." A small smile touched his lips, almost imperceptible, but enough to soften the hard lines of his face. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear with careful tenderness. "Then stay," he said simply. "Stay with us. Not just as their nanny, but as someone I trust, someone I want, with me." Her chest tightened, warmth spreading through her like sunlight. He didn't hesitate. "I will," she whispered. For a long moment they simply stood there looking at one another, the unspoken truths between them finally spoken aloud. And then Adrian leaned down, pressing his forehead gently to hers, a quiet acknowledgement of connection, trust, and something neither had fully named until now. The twins, sensing the shift, ran to them, laughing and clinging to both of them. Adrian picked them up effortlessly, holding them close, while Isabella's arms wrapped around them as well. The four of them stood together, a small but complete family. The rest of the evening passed quietly. Dinner, bath, bedtime stories. No attacks, no interruptions, no threats. Just a house filled with a rare peace. Adrian watched Isabella with the twins and she watched him. And for the first time she realized that the danger, the alpha dominance, the intensity that had once frightened her, it was now a part of a life she wanted to embrace. Later, when the twins were asleep, she sat with Adrian in the quiet of the living room. He didn't dominate the conversation. He simply let her sit beside him, his presence strong but not imposing. For the first time, Isabella didn't feel like she was walking into danger. She felt like she had found a place where she belonged, where she mattered, where her courage and care had meaning. Adrian finally broke the silence. "We're not perfect," he said, voice low. "There will always be challenges, always responsibilities, always instincts that I can't ignore. But I want you here. With us. Fully." Isabella smiled, her heart full. "I'm here," she said. "And I'm not going anywhere." He leaned back slightly, letting the weight of those words settle between them. There was no need for more. They all existed, yes, but now they existed alongside trust, love, and belonging. And in that quiet moment, Isabella knew. She had found her place as a part of a family she hadn't expected to find. And for the first time, Adrian let himself believe it too.